Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Dial the Gate. I am so pleased to be joined in this episode by Stargate executive producer and writer Carl Binder, responsible for a lot of my favorite episodes from the show. He's going to be joining us for over an hour of memories. We just pre-recorded with him. But before I bring him in and before we get into this episode, I really would like you to consider clicking the like button. It makes a huge difference with YouTube's algorithm and will definitely help the show grow its audience. Please also consider sharing the video with a Stargate friend. And if you want to get notified about future episodes, click that subscribe icon. And giving the bell icon a click will notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get any notifications that I may send out of any last-minute guest changes, which have happened from time to time. Clips from this live stream will also be released over the course of the next several days on the gateworld.net YouTube channel. I'm not going to delay this much further. This was an excellent show, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Stargate writer and executive producer Carl Binder is joining us now. Carl Binder, writer and executive producer, Stargate, writer of Stargate SG1, Atlantis and Universe, executive producer of Atlantis and Universe. Do I have that right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Technically correct.
So. Yeah, but I mean, everyone in that kitchen wore all kinds of chef's hats. Really, at the end of the day, thank you for being on Dial the Gate. It is a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure. I'm intimidated, but let's do this.
Absolutely. So you went back as far as SG1's Demons. I was going through this list here. Demons was your real first entry into Stargate, and I'm just going down the list and I'm like, man, this guy has done so much stuff that I loved, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up, and I know I didn't send this to you, but Dr. Quinn, what an amazing experience that had to have been. What a cast. I mean, it's Jane friggin' Seymour, for crying out loud.
It was great. I joined it it ran for 6 seasons. I joined it from the beginning of the end of the 3rd season on, and Beth Sullivan hired me right off of after I did Pocahontas, and she really promoted me instantly. And next thing I know, I'm an executive producer. And then she said, I really like this script you did. You're going to direct it. And I'd never directed anything. And so I got opportunity to direct 2 episodes. I rose up the ladder on the show. I mean, she just gave me all kinds of benefits from being there. And it was just great because I've been fortunate in my career to work on shows that are just sort of, either an old West village where we had a working steam train coming in, and you'd see the big crane coming down as the steam train came in. I'd be like, this is Hollywood, right? And then I'm working on a spaceship later, and it's just like I never really, later with Unspeakable, I working in houses and normal, regular everyday kind of surroundings. I've been fortunate to be on these kind of weird, fun Hollywood type shows, and that was a blast. It was an absolute blast working on that show.
I wanted to know, before we get too deep in the sci-fi world here, and I do want to bring up Unspeakable as well. Man, what a miniseries. I wanted to know a little bit about where you are from and who you were as a young person, and the person who became this writer who created the content that we love.
Well, I was born in Canada, in Windsor, Ontario, which is right across the river from Detroit. And as I always say, my parents were lucky enough to escape when I was 8. And we moved to California. I don't know what my life would have become had we stayed in Windsor. I don't know if you've ever been to Windsor.
I have not.
I don't
know. Toronto is
know.
about as close as I've been.
Well, Toronto's great. Windsor was not. Hopefully, there's nobody listening to this that's from Windsor, but they probably would agree. It's not a kind of place you want to grow up in and live in. Oddly, my wife grew up in Buffalo, which is not too far from Windsor, so we
Yeah.
could have still met each other had her family not moved to Southern California either. But anyway, I grew up in Southern California and always kept my Canadian citizenship. And at a certain point, I became an American, but when I signed with my agent, she said, at that time, she said, the fact that you're Canadian is very good because a lot of shows are starting to go up to Canada to shoot. This is the late 80s. And so I was able to get a story editor job on a Canadian show called Adderley. Oh, but how I was as a little kid is an interest because we moved so much. I went to kindergarten in one school, first grade in another school, second grade in another school. We moved to California, third grade, first half of third grade in one school and second half of third grade. And my mom kept my report cards for my whole time I was in school. And they were always the same, very shy, very sensitive, very quiet, doesn't say anything. But by fifth grade, after I'd had a couple of years in the same school, we started seeing the talks too much in class, more interested in making the other kids laugh. And so
what changed? What was the trigger? Did you just have enough? It's like, this is.
I just got to meet other kids and it became stable. And I had friends, and then I could make a joke in class and everybody would laugh. And I got more comfortable. And up until then, I was just, I didn't know anybody, and I was very worried. But I was always, into like drawing. I wanted to be an animator. I loved the Disney cartoons. But I couldn't draw really well, right? So then I would make up stories, and then I got into acting. And I in high school I went into drama and did plays, and then my parents let me go to USC, where I entered the film school there, and then that just sort of got me off and running.
Carl, who are the people most responsible for turning you into the person you are?
Well, I mean, it's corny, but
no corn on this show, sir. No.
Obviously my parents, because of what I just said, by moving here and by allowing me, because my dad, I was a baseball player. I was supposed to become a baseball player. I got a scholarship offer, but I didn't want to go to that university. I wanted to go to USC Film School. And so instead of having free college, my parents said, okay, we'll pay to have you go to USC. So that was a major deal for helping me to become, and then, family, friends. But as far as that's pretty much how I became who I am. And I was always, like I said, I was a huge fan of Disney growing up. And then my teenage years, 14, 15, I discovered Steven Spielberg and Jaws and Sugarland Express. And that sort of just made me go, oh man, I have got to do this. I have got to get into this business.
Did you go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Did you have to pinch yourself when you actually worked for Disney?
Well, it's weird because both of those things, I was working on a Canadian TV show with Brad Wright, the only two staff writers on the show, Neon Rider. And then in between seasons, I get a call from my agent who said, I got a meeting with you for Pocahontas for Disney. And I could not believe the directors, the producer, and one of the execs at Disney had read a feature spec that I wrote, and for whatever reason they thought, oh, he could do this. So they brought me in. I had 2 or 3 meetings. Next thing I know, I got hired, and it was 2 years on that project. There were 2 other writers that came in after me we all worked together. But yeah, it was great. And then when Pocahontas was finished, was right around when DreamWorks was starting up. And so Katzenberg called my agent and said, we're forming this new company, DreamWorks. We want to do this animated feature called Prince of Egypt. And we'd like Carl and Susanna to come in and meet about it. So me and Susanna Grant went in, And who walks in but Steven Spielberg? And so for 6 months, I got to work with Steven Spielberg. So I got to do both things that I dreamed about. And I actually got to pitch, on the board, our version of what we thought Prince of Egypt should be to Steven Spielberg. And it was, that was very intimidating, but,
Wow.
but it was rewarding. I mean, we ended up leaving the project, but it was, I was like, okay, all right, I did what I wanted to do. So,
And I mean, Pocahontas, I mean, that was the golden age of Disney as far as I'm concerned. Disney animation,
yeah,
just hit after hit after hit every single year,
yeah,
And I mean, of course, I was like 12, 13 at the time. So, I mean, I'm biased, but man, what a resume of just, that was a great time. It had to have been a great time to be in that industry.
it really was, and it was great because it was like the last last animated feature before Jeffrey left to go do DreamWorks.
Right.
And so getting to work with him, which was quite an experience, incredibly difficult, and I mean, just really, really.
Just like he demanded a lot out of you, or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like really early meetings, weekend meetings, Mother's Day meetings.
Oh, man, he was serious.
Oh yeah. This guy, he was relentless. And in the meetings would be like he would schedule his meetings every 15 minutes, and after half hour, if you weren't done, he's up and out and on to the next meeting, and so then you have to schedule. Or you'd pitch him something in the morning, and he'd say, "Okay, I'm not sure about that. Work it up, and we'll talk again at 5." So you're like, we have to solve something and work. It just was, and this was how it was for the entire time I was there, and it was just. But I got to fly to Dublin to record Mel Gibson while he was shooting Braveheart, and then he took us down to his trailer to show us a rough cut on VHS of a battle scene he had just cut together for his little action film, he called it. And I'm like, this is more. Anyway, it was just, a lot of the stuff we got to do because of that movie was just incredible. So I was very fortunate and loved every minute of it, even though it was difficult.
Are there? I mean, I feel like I kind of defeated my next question. You answered it so well. Are there any other projects that you consider defining moments in your career before we move on to some of
the Dr. Quinn was probably defining in that I got to direct, and it got to it was a pretty high profile show, and it was I wrote a lot of episodes, and it was so much fun walking into every morning this other world. You cross the bridge and you're in this old West town, and I got to work with Mr. Rogers and Willie Nelson, and I mean it was a lot of great stuff, and it sort of set me up. Unfortunately, after Dr. Quinn, I kind of got typecast as a soft writer, a writer of this kind of Harlequin romance. So they hired me to do these Mary Higgins Clark, mysteries. I did a show called Mysterious Ways, which was fun,
Right.
from Pax Network. But it was getting hard to get work and to be taken seriously. And then my buddy Brad called to say, come on to the spinoff we're doing of SG1 called Atlantis. I'm like, I'm not a science fiction writer. I can't do that. He said, yes, you can. Don't worry about the science fiction. You worry about character. I'll worry about the science part of it.
So we cannot glaze over this in the slightest. So you're at a transition phase point in your career,
Correct.
and Brad reaches out to you.
Yeah.
And we're already in 2004 spin-off Atlantis territory at this point. So you get the call.
They were just beginning, season 1 of
Right.
Atlantis. And the demon, you brought up demons.
Yes.
I don't remember much of how they brought me up. I don't remember, did I pitch that story? Did they give me that story?
It says it's a written by. It's not a teleplay.
I may have, well, but you know how it works, right?
Vaguely.
I either I pitched it or they gave it to me and we
Yeah.
worked it up on the board. And then I went home and I did an outline, and then I did a script, and then Brad did a page one rewrite pretty much of it. So
And never takes credit for it.
no, and so
Yeah.
this happens a lot in this
Yeah.
business. I've done page one rewrites of writers when I was showrunner on various projects. So, and this is what you did. This is what we did on Dr. Quinn and Mysterious Ways. We did it all the time. I don't really remember much from that at all. So then he said, look, he sent me the pilot and a few rough cuts of the first few episodes or whatever, and then said, see if you can come up with something. So I did a phone pitch with him and Rob Cooper. And I think now Rob was skeptical of me. And I know Joe and Paul were skeptical. But Brad was, Brad, right? He was very confident. And so I remember I pitched a couple things. And one of the stories I pitched was Before I Sleep. But it's not what ended up as Before I Sleep. Well, from what I remember, it was simply, we're investigating a portion of Atlantis that we haven't been to, and we uncover this lab, and in it is a stasis pod with an old woman who's been in there for years and years and years. And when we thaw her out and revive her, it's Elizabeth Weir.
Sounds about right to me.
Right, but how she got there was completely different.
Really?
I had pitched something like, when we first come through the gate, there's some kind of now remember, I don't know much about I'm jumping in cold. I'm a freelancer, right? There's some kind of mechanism that sort of scans bodies coming through, and the city does this, and it picks out the leader, and it starts to recreate a clone that ages rapidly, and it's studying who these people are, what their genetic makeup is. And Rob was like, I don't know about that. So, but they like the idea they like the teaser, right? And that, by the way, that's how we ended up buying a lot of pitches from outside writers, is we liked the teaser. And then we worked the rest of the show. But, then they flew me up there to discuss it further. And in the time that I flew up there, Rob sat down and said, what if the reason it's Elizabeth Weir is this isn't the first time we came through the gate? And then boom, it just started spinning and coming together. And then they all left Martin and I in a room together to break parts of the story. And then we pitched it when they all came back in. And so then I delivered the draft. And as a freelancer, I've worked as freelancer. I've also worked as a showrunner. So what you want as a showrunner from a freelancer is for them to just get it in the zip code, right? Just get the scaffolding there that you can work from to then get the voices right, to get the interactions correct. And so that's all I was hoping to do. I was hoping to just give Brad something that he could then work. And I was surprised that a fair amount of stuff that I had written remained in the final show. So I was happy.
You weren't just in the zip code; you were in the city block on some of it too.
Well, I was a large block, but I was somewhere in that block.
It's one of my favorite episodes of Atlantis, and it is my favorite Weir episode.
Yeah.
Tori is a force in that one, and all of the angles from which she plays that character come to bear. Janice, I don't know who came up with Janice, but I mean, he was a pivotal player, and I think if we were really to delve into the mythology of the franchise, I think we would find out he was responsible for more than we realized.
I think so, yeah.
And it was just a solid episode for her, and a great way for you to enter. And it's a great, those teasers. I see what you're saying. The teaser element. If that's good, then we can tweak some of the things that follow it in order to make it fit like the kind of stories that they want to tell.
Yeah.
But so your original idea was that the city kind of scans the leader and starts building a clone of it. That's interesting.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, and they just were like, no, I thought that's that. Rob is right. No, that's not gonna work at all. And I was just like, yes. I tell you, it was intimidating. Working with those guys was when they. So after that, Brad asked me to do this, I guess, kind of a clip show, sort of semi-clip show, semi-not.
Letters from Pegasus, yeah. It's like 10% clip show.
Yeah, and most of that he ended up rewriting anyway. But then he said, come up, do you want to come aboard, full time? And I said, okay. And so we worked out a deal where I was only guaranteed half the season in case I, flamed out. But like the first few months working on the show, I was just overwhelmed because we were doing Atlantis and SG1.
Correct.
I was trying to catch up on SG1, watching episode after episode and studying and just walking around the hallways in a blur. I remember Brad coming into my office. How you doing today? And I said, good. He goes, are you doing okay? Because I was just like, it took a long time to catch up with those guys.
Was this so you're taking SG1 as homework? Was the sci-fi intimidating, or were you like, oh, I get this, it's not so bad, it's not as bad as I thought it was?
Some of it. Oh no! It was as bad as I thought it was. It was very intimidating. But you have to learn it, and you have to get it. And you have this great backstop of Rob Cooper and Joe Malazzi and Paul Mully and Brad Wright, who the great thing about those guys is they won't let you get away with anything that's not right. And fortunately, my entire time there, even on SGU, I was given shows that were more, character based. And so there was a lot more, like Quarantine, it's just a bunch of two-handers, right? People just isolated and, let's see how are we going to pair these people up, in a way that, I didn't see that kind of Solenka and Carter in an elevator.
Pigeon talk.
Yeah, exactly. So those were the they were the kind of the smaller episodes that we could save some money on. And so that was what they were giving me to do, which I was thrilled to be able to do. And I think that the biggest space battle I ever had in an episode was in the Hive. But yeah, it was, and we would sit in the writer's room and we talk about like, if I had questions, and then I'd write very detailed outlines, and then they'd be able to tell me, well, this is wrong, or do this, or change this, or whatever. So it really, I felt comfortable because I became comfortable because I could then trust the guys to protect me.
One of the things that's frustrating about the landscape, and I suppose it's true in any genre, but I would think especially true in this one, is that you're going in there and pitching, and you're fortunate to have these monoliths of television in the room with you to be able to say, well, Star Trek did that, or we did that.
All the time.
Or, maybe we can make it work for us, but Star Trek did that. There's only so much stuff.
And at a certain point, I just gave up because I would come up with, what about this? And I would go in and they'd be like, are you kidding me? It's been done 800,000 times. and then I just, after a while, so what would end up happening is one of the guys would come in and say, "Oh, I've got an idea," or they would talk about different ideas that they had for the season, and is anybody interested in any of these? And or where we wanted to go with each, with the retrovirus, and then we're gonna capture a wraith and we're gonna give it to him, and make him Atlantis.
A human.
A member, a human, yeah.
Oh,
And
I see. Oh, we're talking Michael.
yeah, and I was like, oh, I want to do that one. I want to do that. That one that sounds like a great character study. Also, something else I love doing are moral dilemmas, right? That's like, are we doing the right thing here? And so that wasn't my idea. I didn't pitch that idea. And in fact, I was trying to make it work with the team going out, capturing a wraith, injecting him. We're studying him, we're arguing, and he becomes a human. And now what? And it just felt so linear, and it felt so uninteresting. And then Malazzi, says, we start with him waking up, and we don't know who this guy is. And it's like, from then on, it was just like, yes, that's how to tell this story.
It's
and
not.
Why are we behaving like this?
You're right. It's not necessarily. Well, I mean, it is about the story, but it's not necessarily it's the angle that you tell it as well.
The POV.
That makes it interesting.
We're telling it from his POV instead of our POV.
Yeah.
And to me, that was much more interesting because it's much more, it's much more character based, and it's a mystery. And what's going on with this? And oh wow, why are we behaving this way? And it was.
Well, you want people to care for it too, and I mean, and half of that I think largely comes from the story, but the other half comes from Connor. You pick someone that people are going to intrinsically, have a predisposition to liking anyway.
Yeah.
Based on the sci-fi background.
Yeah, he's an innocent, right? And he's trying to figure it out. And he's like, they keep telling me I'm this and this and this, and I guess I believe them, but why am I feeling these weird sensations? And it's
why is the big tall caveman always after me?
Yeah, what's his problem? Yeah. Yeah. So those are the kinds of stories that I was interested in, and they would also say, "Hey, look, we have something." I remember in Universe when Rob said, it was Rob who said, "I have this idea where Volker needs a kidney. We need to do a kidney transplant," and I think you'd be good for that one. So so I got that one. So and that became Hope. So. So they kind of knew which episodes were better for me, and which I would be better to handle, and so and Aurora was like that as well. When I first that was my first script, was Aurora.
Really?
Condemned aired before it, but
I see.
Aurora was the first script, and I just remember doing, I don't know, I remember doing an outline that I don't think anybody liked. And so then they gave me notes, and then I did another outline, and then slowly but surely it sort of got there. And then that first season and even the second season, Brad was doing a lot of rewriting on, he would do his pass, to get the voices right, and I'm learning, right? When you jump in, you don't have the voices of these people. You watch it and you think you do, and then nope. McKay says this line, and that's so much better. It's that's McKay. Why did I write that other line? So you're just trying to learn and pick it up as you go along, and hopefully get better at it.
What do you initially come up with when you are writing? And I think a little bit of this has been telegraphed already with like the like coming in and finding Elizabeth in stasis, but that may not have been your original idea. So I do mean the first idea of that script. So the reason I want to ask is, when you're writing, do you come up with like individual themes, or like Rob Cooper does? You know, he wants to tell, like, he typically thinks about his stories and themes, or do scenes come first for you, or something else?
I don't necessarily, it would be it's more of the theme, I think, unless somebody pitches me a story that I immediately see, like for instance, on Universe, we were talking about the first 9 or 10 episodes of different things that the fire, water, earth,
Elements.
time, all those, and then life, and it was I forget if it was Rob or Brad or whoever said we wanted to do an episode like a day in the life on the ship, and how bleak it is for them. And I right away started thinking, oh, that spurred some scenes. That spurred some. I thought of the opening and closing with a montage.
Right? Is that the worst day since yesterday?
Well,
I
and
think that's
the great thing is, my daughter was in college, and she would send me. My daughter Brianna would send me these playlists and songs so that I could stay hip and stay current. And she actually became my technical advisor, because she's an astrophysicist, right? She's
right.
an astronomer now, and so I would always call her to run stuff by her and get her input and her notes and whatever. But anyway, she would send me music, and Flogging Molly was one of the things, and that song sort of became my theme song. Like I love that song because it just speaks to me. And when they talked about life, and I thought about this montage, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could get that song? And we did.
And Janelle Monáe, I believe, is in that episode as well.
No, she was in
Earth.
Earth. Yeah.
Dad gummit.
Yeah.
Foolish, David. Wow. But still, what a catch. I mean, before she had risen to huge stardom, that was great. I remember getting I've got the book around here somewhere.
Well,
Janelle Monáe is in Stargate Universe, and I'm like, wow, they're really leveraging this kind of more popular side of the show. And now it's like, I don't know anyone who doesn't know who Janelle Monáe is.
Also, Carrie McDowell, our post-production supervisor, and she would help find the music. Like we talk about, can we maybe get something like this, and she would come back and yes or no or whatever.
Yeah, that'll be $10 million, please.
Well, yeah, well, because Rob originally wanted to have a Coldplay song in Air, and I think lost, or no, one of the episodes, and no, that wasn't gonna happen. But she pitched this unknown band, and we loved this music, and so we used it. It was season 2. I get the seasons confused sometimes, but it was the Mumford and Sons, and it was we're with TJ and the baby, and I forget the name of the song.
Yeah, it's the end of the episode when she's staring at
the
the
anyway, they were unknowns that she got from the record company, and we used them. And in the course of the season, shooting the season, by the time we got to the end, we wanted to use a Mumford and Sons song sort of at the bookend at the end, and they were way too expensive by then.
Wow.
And said no, they just declined. They said no, thank you. But it's just like
at the last shot of the show.
No, it was in one of the later episodes.
Okay.
But by then they had broken out, and so
no, sci-fi. Yeah, we're good. We got your money. Thanks so much. Joel's.
Oh, that last cue.
That last cue is, in my opinion, the best thing he ever wrote.
It's the best.
I would give a digit to get my hands on that file, and to be able to release some of his SGU music to the world, because it's just extraordinary how good he was. I mean,
I love,
he was always good, but near the end of that, I mean, SGU was his show, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. I loved what he did. It's funny because I had found some temp music to play over the little montage and epilogue where TJ's succumbing to ALS
Right.
and ending with the empty chair. And it was a Mark Knopfler piece that was heartbreaking. And in the rough cut, when I put that temp music on, everybody in the room was just, oh, it was so emotional. I thought, how is he going to replace that with? It was great. It's
Yeah.
just sensational.
Exactly. Absolutely. And Epilogue is my favorite episode from that show.
Well, thank you. It's also mine. I should say it's my favorite episode. Actually, I should say it's my favorite script of my entire career.
Really?
That I have ever written. Yeah, it was. I felt like at that point. At that point, it's all downhill from here. This is the best I can do, and I was very proud and pleased with how that episode came out. I was thrilled that the cast had such a good time doing it, and that the crew had a good time doing it. And it was really difficult. It was a big undertaking, but I think I'm most proud of that than anything else I've done in my career.
It benefits from already having the circumstance established in the previous episode, which is great because you don't have to spend time explaining why you're opening this to an old Chloe. We already know that there's a previous version of them out there. But I love especially Gauntlet is a perfectly serviceable ending, and I'm grinding my teeth when saying that, to the series. It is a perfectly serviceable ending. But because I'm grinding my teeth because there was no more. But at the same time, in many respects, depending on how, from a certain point of view, Luke, the episode epilogue I think is just as fairly a series finale as well. How many times do we get to see a story where we see the outcome of a group of characters over generations?
Right. But it's not the outcome of our characters.
Right.
It's the
This is
outcome of
true.
the other characters, the other life. So in that way, it's probably not. But what was for me so much fun was that kind of It's a Wonderful Life. Like what if we didn't, like, the first thing when I sat down to, like, okay, what's going to happen when all these people are on this planet and building that? Oh, Volker's going to need a kidney, right?
Because that happened anyway.
Because that happened, and you weren't around you didn't have Destiny, and so he became the first casualty. So it was fun to look at all of that. But what was interesting is there was no real stakes to it, and as we were working on it, it was like, well, there's just nothing that has a real world implication. And I don't know why. I think it was Paul Mully who came up with the idea of giving one of our characters either he said ALS or said a disease
that they have now.
Our character is going to get, and that just ups the tension and the stakes as far as what our team is going through right now and will go through now for the rest of the series. And so I thought that was a great idea. Of course, it wasn't. It was one of the guys giving me the idea, But I ran with it, and
whose idea was it? Because I've not asked any of the core group yet. Whose idea was it to create an alternate Destiny crew? Because obviously that's what happens when they try to activate the portal back to Earth in a star. It creates a copy of them. Yeah. And then as soon as that happened, I, as an audience member, was like, we're going to see these people again. They're going to use that as leverage in later episodes. And it made, I think the most rich tapestry of the show at that point. But whose initial idea was that? Do
I
you recall?
believe it was Brad.
Okay.
Yeah, Brad came in with this idea of doing Twin Destinies. Yeah.
But the amount of research that had to go into, okay, we've created a civilization that has 2,000 years of history, that has the benefits of video logs, so they will continue to use English more than likely, but spellings are going to change, and music is going to evolve, and these little teeny tiny things that they're all like, interesting music, things like that would just be kind of like out of phase from us, had to have been just delicious to plan out. Or did you?
I wanted Girl from Ipanema playing in that, and I don't know why we ended up not being able to get it or to do it in music, or I don't know why, but it still worked, the music, but it would have just been funnier if it was the Girl from Ipanema, because why not? It would have survived. It would have survived thousands of years. But those kind of things, and also like the beef jerky, that
Right.
would survive, after so long. So that was fun. That was fun to, and they were starting ahead of the game. Like they weren't starting from scratch, but they were starting with a lot of knowledge that they didn't have.
Scientists.
Yeah,
I mean, they already know that they're going to have to mix certain alloys together in order to start making metals and things like that.
Right,
so they do have a heads up. There are little things though that you would probably get lost had Eli, the college dropout, not written all their textbooks. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Jeez. I want to skip over to 200.
Okay.
Which scenes in 200 were you responsible for writing? Which vignettes?
Look, I don't remember.
Okay.
Martin and I were assigned a group of scenes. And then of that group of scenes, Martin said, I'll write these and you write these. Okay, so we both wrote our scenes. We handed it into the guys who rewrote the whole thing. So it was a Brad Rob undertaking. One of my lines made it through. One line that I wrote survived into the fight, and it's the singularity is about to explode. That was my line.
That makes no sense.
Exactly. That little exchange was me, but the rest of it was, and I was. I will be honest that I was a skeptic of 200. When they were
Really?
when they were pitching it, I kept thinking, like, clearly Brad and Rob know their audience, know their fans better than I knew them. This was my my second season in the franchise, right? It was season 10, so I was in season 3
of Atlantis, yeah.
Right. So I was like, you guys are making fun of a show that a lot of people take very seriously. And Brad Rob kept saying, no, don't worry. They'll get the joke. They'll get the joke. It'll be fun for them. They'll love it. And I kept thinking, but aren't you, by making fun of the show, aren't you making fun of the fans? Aren't you? I was just like, I kept thinking, ooh, you're going too far. You're going too far. But Rob, would just tell me to shut up. We're going to do this. So that was pretty much.
Well,
I was wrong, obviously.
There were instances, and Malazzi and I were on like episode 7 or 8. We're doing deep dives of each of his straight through from beginning to end. And when we got to the Jay Felger ones of this kind of mad scientist at the SGC who has dolls of the team members at his house and everything else, even Joe was like. But when you're making fun of the mechanics of your show and the in-jokes that are among the characters and the circumstances that you're putting them in, they even use the literary reference, well, we'll hang a lantern on it. There were a lot of lanterns hung in Stargate.
Yeah.
I think it just works. I remember being in Brad's office when you guys were getting ready to do it. And Brad was like, people are either going to love it or they're going to hate it.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in my living room with my folks just 3 days before SG1's cancellation was announced, because it was announced that Monday, um, thinking, this is brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant.
Well, see, I I walked in the next day after it aired, and all the fans were raving about it. I said, clearly, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Like, I'm just gonna trust you guys. If you guys say this is gonna work, I'm all for it. But yeah, obviously I was wrong about that one.
I wanted to bring up. You said you got one line into that episode. You were responsible, and if you don't say, well, Brad wrote. If you say Brad wrote this one, I'm going to be crushed.
Uh-oh.
But I'm interested to see if you can remember the episode. You are responsible for giving me the hardest laugh in the history of the show.
Okay.
The sick have been cured. The lame can walk again. Well, some still crawl, but they crawl a lot faster than they used to.
That was me. There were there was a lot of stuff that Brad yeah, because then he starts anyway. Brad did a pass, did his pass, and you know, tweaked a lot and added a lot of funny stuff that was very, like, really got Richard Kind's voice. But there were some things that I was very happy. That line right there,
It's so funny.
they could walk, well, they can't, but they can crawl much faster. The frozen baby speak, you know, which I liked and grew up to be, and then he points over and her, no, him. So there were aspects. There was a lot of stuff that survived of mine in Irresistible.
Tell us about that. Richard Kind, it was in the original film, you know. I mean, much more of like I mean, you really got to harness his kind of Spin City kind of his humor. This is a comedic character. This is the Harcourt Fenton Mudd, the Harry Mudd of Atlantis.
But I mean, when Rob first pitched this Delicious Fat Guy episode, about this guy that exuded pheromones that just attracted people, I thought, oh man, I would love to be able to do it. Can I please do this? Can I please do this? And so then Brad and I, Rob was off doing something else, so Brad and I, you know, worked on it, and then I went off and I did my pass, and then Brad did his pass. And when we got Richard Kind, I thought that this is great. And then he turned out to be just this total sweetheart. Like that, he was just really nice and went to Joe Malazzi's chocolate party, and he was just it worked out great, and it was fun because the cast just really enjoyed doing something that was just so different, and just, it was always intended to be just something that was funny.
Yeah.
And the thing is he's not a good guy, right? He's not,
Right.
He's an evil person. We're not glorifying this guy.
Right.
We're making sure that he gets his comeuppance at the end of it. And so that's why I thought it's okay to have fun and make him funny, but by the end, he takes a very dark turn, and ultimately at the end, you know, we're sending you back and letting your townsfolk have, you know,
have their way with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Martin, we were on set for that, me and Darren through Gate World, and Martin, we took him aside and talked to him. He said, I'm deliberately shooting this like a comedy. And
Yeah.
I'm deliberately trying to shoot this almost like there's a fourth wall. And if you're looking really closely, you can see it. But it was an example of, you know, SG1 has its comedic elements. You think that was funny? Atlantis is going to throw some funnier ones at you, you know.
Yeah.
And some people argue that it worked. Some people argue that it didn't. I thought it was hysterical. And you know, he brought it back.
I was surprised that there was a lot of negative reaction to it afterwards, and I understood what they were saying, but what I always just kept saying is, no, he's not we're not glorifying this guy. We're not making this guy the good guy. He's the bad guy.
Yeah, look at where we leave him.
Yeah. This guy is he's gonna get what's coming to him.
Were you? I know that Joe was the one that really had the pulse on the fandom. How often would you poke around after Friday nights and see what people were saying. Go online and
We
because
would
those were the days when fan reviews were all the rave and everything else.
we would check it out, but to a certain extent, because it's some of it, no one's harsher than your closest, your deepest fans, your and so sometimes you're just like, wow, I did like, a lot of people didn't like Life on from SGU. Okay, I get it. I get it was a little soapy, but I really loved doing that show. I loved writing it. I loved being on set. I loved working with the actors and Alex Chappell, the director. The cast loved it, and I was really thrilled with the final product. And then, people are like, oh, it's boring, and it's very so okay, yeah, because a lot of it happens on Earth, and it's so I was surprised by that reaction. And so at a certain point you just sort of, okay, you want to get feedback, and you want to listen to it, but you also just ultimately you want to do shows that you want to watch too. So
Well, I mean, you and I both know that SGU automatically out of the gate had a couple of strikes against it from the fandom perspective, and there was very little that could be done about that, and there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff that there's no reason to share, that was all happening at the time. But I think when you take Universe by itself, and a number of fans who have since rewatched the show, or who were not what fans of Stargate at the time have now since seen it, they're like, what's wrong with it? I mean, it
yeah,
was 5 to 10 years ahead of its time in
but
terms of storytelling.
both SG1 and Atlantis were good guys versus bad guys.
Right.
And now we have this show where it's like, that's why I loved SGU the most of all of them, because I just love when they pitched, when Rob and Brad first pitched the spinoff and how they wanted to do it. But the thing that I loved was there's no good guys and bad guys. It's military versus civilian. And what do you do when you're stranded out in the middle of nowhere on the ship? And I love that idea of Young's not really a good guy. Rush is definitely not a good guy. Even Scott, who is like probably, well, Eli's probably the most genuine good guy in there, but here's Lieutenant Scott, who's like this really good, big-hearted lieutenant, but he's got his issues as well. Like, they all have their issues, and I just love that. I love the muddiness of it.
Yeah.
And I think that was a problem. The darkness of it was a problem. The slow roll of the first season was a problem. I think they just, but I always said that this is not getting a fair shot.
Yeah. I think this
is a really good show.
I wish that, because obviously, they could have pulled the plug on it, but I wish that, in hindsight, there was a way to communicate to the fandom to say, Sci-Fi has pretty much given this a 2-season order out of the gate. So expect 40 episodes and give us a chance to tell a little bit of a slower story over those 40 episodes. We're telling a story where people have been placed in the situation that they're in, and they're all not necessarily ideal for the roles that they're in. I mean, I would argue that TJ is more, on certain days, more reasonable a commander than Young would be, especially at the start. The episode where she takes command it's like she needs to be in that chair once they find the captain's chair and once they find the bridge. But the show is going in such a place where these people will become the people that they need to be in the circumstances that they're in, because they have no choice. Give them a chance to find it. And I think by the end of SGU season 2, they're well on their way.
Well, yeah, I mean, season 2 was pivotal, because in the middle of that season, it becomes this, okay, look, we're in this together. Let's start thinking forward instead of always thinking about how we're going to get back. Let's see this mission out. And it became more of that kind of show that I think everybody wanted it to be. I don't know, you can go back and look at what could we have done different, or how should we have sped it up a little bit. We ended up taking one episode and making two out of it. Originally Fire became Darkness and Light, two episodes. So there's and then we moved some episodes around, like Life wasn't originally supposed to be after Time, and so look, every show has its ups and downs, and you're finding it. But what I was just blown away by right from the get-go was how good that cast was.
Mm-hmm.
They were just solid, and we discovered these gems in there, with the Calamus and
Mm-hmm.
and all of them, and Jen Spence, and yeah, there's some really, really great people working, actors working on that show.
Not just the talent in front of the camera, but the talent behind the camera. People like, Mark Savella, the effects supervisor, digital effects supervisor. You had James C.D. Robbins, who built those sets, out of his mind.
That was incredible. Those sets were just incredible. How
Gorgeous.
we were able to make that ship look so huge, repurpose the corridors, to the lighting built into the corridors, and that gate room, that huge gate room, and then the bridge in the second season. Man, he just really. And then Mark was just like, yeah, we can do that. What about that? Yeah, we can do that. Oh, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, no problem. We can do that. It's just like, it was incredible, the work that
You'd reached a point, in terms of visual effects and everything else at that point, where it's like, I challenge you to come up with something that we can't pull off.
Yeah.
It's just a question of money. It's
just
okay. That will cost X number of dollars. You want the fish people? Fine, we can do fish people. So
yeah, it was quite an experience, and on SGU, we were on the scripts that we wrote. We were on the set the entire time, and so that was great, because it was so. The cast was so excited about doing these scripts and working on these scripts, and we had this massive day on Greater Good in second season, with Young and Rush getting in this big fight and this long discussion in this corridor of this alien ship, and it was like a 10.5, 11-page day, which is huge for us, with a big fight scene and all the stuff involved in it. And Bobby had a huge amount of dialogue that he had to talk about. They both did. And they came ready to play. And it was such an incredible day, because they were all into it and wanted to make, instead of saying, well, this is what's wrong with the script, or this is, or questioning everything we did, they would come and say, okay, there's a reason this is here. It's not arbitrary. This line didn't just happen. Let's make it work, and let's figure this out, and work with us. It was really a positive give and take, creative collaboration that was just unmatched. I loved it.
That particular episode, I think, is the turning point, where there are obviously two sides of this issue. One wants to get them back to where they were from, and the other wants to say, well, I mean, at least we're here. Let's move forward. And this episode and Twin Destinies, I think, really began to establish that they have to put aside their issues for the sake of that crew.
And for the first time, Rush presents the possibility of maybe seeing this through is our way to get back.
Right. Absolutely. Did you like the idea of the? I mean, I know that the information was compartmentalized. The nature of Destiny's mission. Did you like the ideas that were presented in terms of where the show was going to be going? Um, were you not exposed to those just because Brad and Rob wanted to keep those under wraps?
Not a whole lot. Yeah,
Okay.
not a whole lot. And maybe they did mention something that I didn't quite get. I had my own ideas about, because like that whole speech, that whole sequence, and that Paul did a pass. I think Brad did a pass. I think they all did a pass, and added to it because it was like the pivotal moment in the series,
Right.
where we're now moving forward. So I wasn't really 100% sure as to, because sometimes things change too. We're jumping at the end of the season, we're jumping into a whole nother galaxy. Well, what are we going to find there? What are we going to see? Where are we going? Now, they always, Brett, they did say they always talked about a 5-season arc.
Yes.
So we were still a ways from really figuring out where we're going. I know that we had talked about the aliens that created the Faith planet,
The obelisks.
that whole planet that was built. The whole notion that there's some super intelligent, the whole thing about, if you're so technologically advanced, it's the same thing as God. That was
Right.
the whole episode was about faith, right? So
well, the show had done that with the Ancients and with the Ori.
Right.
I think, and this is,
they never created a planet,
right, or a solar system.
A solar system, right? Yeah.
I think that, I mean, my personal, and this is just kind of me self-indulging for a moment, I do think that had the show gone on, we would have discovered that what was attributed to Destiny's intelligence would have been actually this race. My impression was that, the ship was supposed to be doing a lot of this stuff. I don't know how much the ship was actually doing that, as much as this alien race was actually more responsible than we were.
We're all just part of somebody's science experiment,
right? Exactly. Yeah. The ship is out there investigating a possible experiment.
I like that because it explains God, right?
Well, I mean, or some version of something. There is a. One of my favorite lines from Star Trek: The Next Generation is when Q says he's God. Picard says, "I refuse that you believe that the universe is not so poorly designed." So, I have fan questions for you.
Okay. Hopefully, I can answer them.
Honestly, from the bottom of my heart. Oh, just so thankful to say, Matthew Hall, instead of a question, I'd just like to state, you guys made my growing up and my early adulthood livable, and I owe you my appreciation, not just for the escapism, but fueling my love of science and technology and making me want to learn more.
Oh, that's really great, right? That's really cool. I love hearing stuff like that.
This is one out of left field. Jason Burning, were there ever any thoughts of adding any of the cast from SG-1 or Atlantis to the SGU cast permanently, like had been done on SGA?
Oh, permanently. I don't think we ever talked about permanently. I know we had him. We had, Hewlett was on, and Shanks, and Richard.
Ricardo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like you already had like 15 new players to deal with. What's a couple more?
Yeah. And no, I don't think so, unless Brad and Rob had talked about it, but I was never privy to that.
Dr. Essex, what was it like directing Jane Seymour?
Well, it was great, actually, because she's like the perfect person to work with, perfect actor, because showed up every day, lines memorized, ready to go, bought in, rarely got pushback from her, rarely had her say never, pull a tantrum or I can't do this, or like none of the, traditional star, behavior. And my very first episode that I ever directed was a Christmas episode, and she happened to really like the script, and so she bought in to the idea of me directing. And so because she did, the whole cast,
Yeah, she's the star.
she's a star. And if she's got all of her lines memorized, you better have your lines memorized. So like she was like the ultimate pro as far as, being able to work with her, direct her. She was just great. It was, I had a lot of, it was scary as hell, first time directing. But she made it, and the rest of the cast made it very comfortable for me.
It was one of the biggest shows on television.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Sunday night, if I'm
Saturday night.
Saturday night, must-see television.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a bit of a drama / soap.
It was very much a soap.
It's like, is she gonna marry Sully? Oh, she married him.
Well, every season, CBS would sit us down at the end of the season, or at the beginning or the end of the season, say, all right, for next season, we need to have more action because we want more men to watch this show.
Demographics.
I just kept thinking, yeah, they kept trying to say, we got to make this show a bigger demographic. And I'm like, but men are not going to watch this show unless they're watching it with their wives. And we don't want to alienate the people that are watching the show to begin with. And so by doing these action shows that women, so anyway, there was this constant them trying to make the show something it wasn't, instead of just embracing what it was and just going with it. So anyway, it was a lot of fun working on that. I mean, I did do some episodes that had a fair amount of action in it, but ultimately it is a Harlequin romance. It's a romance show. And when I came aboard, I said, okay, that's what this is. You buy into it and you get going. It was a very hard show to write for. Freelance, we had a lot of freelance writers come in, good quality writers that just couldn't get the voice of the show because it was just it was just what it was, right? It was very distinctive.
I think that's an advantage in a show like Stargate, where you guys have a core. I mean, you guys did take pitches, but you had that core team who really understood those characters, and you had the writers who were previously established, who were willing to take on people like yourself and say, okay, let's invest in Carl and really sharpen those sci-fi parts of his perspective.
Yeah, we would have writers come in from the outside, and we just would take these pitches and then they would go off and they'd write outlines, and quite often what would happen is we'd break the story with the writer in the room. They'd go off, write the outline, and it would be different from what we talked about in the room. And we like, what? Why did it become this? Well, I just thought it might be interesting to do this. And we're like, well, no, we wanted you to do this.
And this would happen on Stargate.
Oh yeah, it happened. I wrote a couple of that. Well, Condemned was one of them.
Yes.
And
Kiryk, Mike Dopu's character.
Faith.
Okay.
Well, Faith actually, Dennis McGrath actually wrote the script, but then I did pretty much an overhaul of the script because we added the whole TJ pregnancy element to it. But and I really wanted to dig into the whole faith, the whole God, is it God, is it not, but like with Condemned, if I remember correctly, there was another one. The Game was another one, where they started off a certain way, and then it sort of veered off into something that we didn't want to do, and so I took over They didn't even go to script. They were cut off at outline. So then I took it and did it the way we wanted to do it.
Were there ever situations where you got the script and it's like, well, this is what they pay me for. This is definitely work, but we've got to get this thing, shipshape and Bristol fashion, and it was my number to do it.
Yeah. Faith was one of those. But here's the thing. I wanted to do that one because from the first pitch, I was like, that's a really good, I really like that storyline and I want to do that. I would like to do that. So I did that and that's uncredited. But it's pretty much a full write.
As long as you get paid.
Look, I got paid as my producer salary. So
there you go.
That's part of being on staff. You have to do rewrites, and it always drives me crazy when writers, staff writers, or producers or writers. I don't want to. I'm not going to rewrite that script. Well, yes, that's what we do. And they get the credit, and you have to.
Right.
And you have to. That's just part of the deal.
Well, I would think that you would benefit in other ways, to compensate, in terms of you have the good fortune of being an executive producer on a franchise that just for the love of Pete will not die.
Yeah.
So
it keeps going, and
it does.
Just yesterday got some residual checks for it.
Hey, there you go.
The gift that keeps giving. Yeah,
that's right.
And that's another, great, Dr. Quinn's still running. Like the time periods and science fiction, they tend to just keep going. It's the modern day shows that get dated.
Right, quickly. Exactly. There is something about stories that focus not so much on, okay, can you get us into the building? Okay, I'm nearing the passcode now. Oh no, the garage door isn't coming up. Oh, we need to get in there. We only have 23, hours in the rest of this season. Versus the humanist storytelling that focuses on who we are as these temporal creatures.
Each one of those episodes has to be relatable to what people are going through in their
that's right.
everyday lives. So that's what I was always interested in.
You brought up Tracker. That dude right there says, Joseph Malazzi once joked you were originally supposed to play Kiryk in Tracker, but couldn't because of a food truck related injury.
Damn that food truck.
Well, you can't leave it there, my friend.
That's Joe. That's Joe being Joe. I cracked up. That's pretty funny. I think one time I was in Joe's office and they came up, we were in prep. I think we were in prep for Tracker, and they had Mike's costume, his breastplate or whatever the heck he was wearing. And he wasn't around. I'm sort of the same size, so they had me try it on to see the thing. And of course, there's Joe snapping pictures.
Of course, for the blog.
And then he put it on his blog that Carl's going to be playing the part that And then of course he added. I didn't know he added the food truck. Oh, I came so close to playing that part. Yes,
he had to cover for you some legitimate reason why you weren't able to pull it off. So, Mike Doputh, though, what a softie! Holy cow! He was established earlier on in the franchise as you had him as a Russian, you had him as a bounty hunter, and Kiryk and Varro really were. I mean, they could have come off as the same character in many respects. Not to say that his range wasn't, that he didn't have range, but I mean, there was just that tone that he regularly hit with the characters in Stargate that was, I'm the big tough guy, but I'm also saving the little girl,
Yes, because, and you buy it. Like he's a good guy. Like there's some guys you can, okay, this is going to be a good, but they just the way they carry themselves, the way they look, no, they're not good. These are not good. You're going to be the bad guy, right? You just like him. Right from the start, even when he's capturing Keller and dragging her through the woods, he's got
to have his reason.
He's got to have his reasons. He's a good guy. So yeah,
Isn't it great to turn those kinds of expectations on their ear with the
yeah,
audience too?
yeah. He's a
Uh,
softie, yeah. I enjoyed that one, that tracker. I like that one.
And I mean, I forgot to say, you're a writer and executive producer of Stargate, and also Jennifer Keller's dad. If everyone's paying close
That's right.
attention.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, we need. Oh God, it was that episode. What was
I
it?
can't remember the name of the episode, but someone's going to shout it out in the comments now when
Identity.
this goes live.
Identity.
There you go. Because
And because I'm picturing the woman looking through the Keller's room.
Right. Exactly.
Seeing the picture, and we need Keller's dad, and so I suggested, how about me? So we went out. In
Oh, you did that.
Oh yeah, it was my idea. We went out in front of the studio, in front of a bush, and took a picture.
Got her in a gown and a diploma, and there you go.
That was great. That was great.
Speaking of unexpected POVs, was there any question? Jen Collin, as a writer for Stargate, did you have any particular favorite characters that you really relished writing for? Like they would come into the room and then your fingers would take off.
God, so many of them.
I think that's one of the reasons Martin Giro kept on doing so many McKay episodes. That voice was just rattling around in his head. But I'm curious for you.
I think it was like it wasn't like there was like one particular character, but there were aspects of each character.
Okay.
I really related to McKay's anxiety.
Okay.
And so I enjoyed writing. I enjoyed McKay. He was a very fun character to write for, because he was, there was such a great comedic arrogance, vulnerability,
Neurotic,
all that stuff. And I related to a lot of that. So I love that. We just talked about, I love the Keller character. Because I love the underdog. I loved it. I love bringing in this really super young doctor, female doctor, who has to prove herself, and I love throwing her into these situations where she was so out of her element,
and didn't necessarily wear her heart on her sleeve like all the previous Atlantis doctors. She was much more, okay, this is the situation that guy's got to cut, move on, triage, hello.
Yeah, and so I love that character. I loved Weir. I loved writing for Weir. I ended up doing a lot of Weir stories. In fact, that was one episode. That was one episode where I pitched the idea of Weir waking up in a mental institution and being told that Atlantis is just some fiction she made up, and then. I think when I pitched it, it wasn't the nanites; it was something else.
Okay.
But then they saw an opportunity to, for the storyline to follow.
Yeah, because he grabs her at the end of the episode, so you're teeing up the next one, much like in season 2 with the Iratus bug arc with Shepard.
Yeah.
So those little mini arcs were very satisfying for fans to watch, because it's like, this is a continuing story.
They were fun, and so that was a fun episode to write for Weir, and then I think there were Ghost in the Machine. Well, that ended up not being Weir, but it was Weir enough. It wasn't Weir; it was Fran, but it was Weir. It was originally supposed to be Weir,
right?
But then what was the other one? Lifeline. But I liked writing. I liked writing for her too. But in Universe, there were a lot. They were all really rich characters. I really enjoyed. I was always, at the beginning, I was struggling to get the voices of, especially Rush and Young, and so Brad, Brad did a major rewrite of Water. Like the bulk of Water is written by Brad.
Okay.
And when I would look back on it, I would see that it's a lot of it is the Rush Young dynamic. Even in Life, all the Rush young scenes, Brad did a big pass on those because he had that dynamic down. And so it was just a matter of studying that and trying to understand it. And so I don't think I ever fully got either of those characters. I like the secondary character. I love Volker to the point where I wrote when I was given the Brad came and said, "What if we got a tick, alien tick, and it caused you to hallucinate?" And so I right away went to it's all about what you fear the most. Okay, what does everybody fear the most? It gets into your limbic system or whatever. And so Volker, it just came to claustrophobia, right? And Patrick Gilmore he was just so great. I just went, I gotta write stuff, and I hope the second season, the kidney thing. So I really enjoyed writing for him. I must say.
Well, I mean, someone would have had to have had, you're trapped on board a tin can with a failing life support system. Someone in there is going to have claustrophobia, and if you have like a chronic claustrophobia, it would be awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I have claustrophobia, so it was very easy to sort of picture, what would I feel like? I could never be an astronaut. I could never do it.
You were exercising your demons like Rob Cooper did in Doppelganger with all the nightmare sequences.
Look, there's a lot. That's one of the joys of writing is therapy. Is you
right.
You can work stuff out doing that. So
look at the Shrine for Brad.
Yeah.
Oh man. What a good show.
Yeah, he really. Yeah, he came back to do that. Like that was at the end, right? That's season 5.
Season 5.
Yeah. That's when Joe and Paul were doing it, and Brad comes back and boom.
He had a great idea. Speaking of Brad, Jeff Sharp, has Brad contacted you about the next Stargate?
No, he has not.
Okay.
No, and that's fine. He's. I mean, he also knows that I'm doing daycare, and but I would love to work with all of these guys if they wanted to, but and Joe's developing stuff, and but also Brad, this may be one of those things where he's going to do it, because that seems to be a trend now, where one person writes the series, and especially these orders are now like 6, 7, 8 episodes.
I know.
I love it, but I know fans don't like it, but for writers, it drives me crazy, because at the end of The Crown, I'm so pissed off that they only do 10 episodes. It drives me crazy. I want them to do more, but then you realize the undertaking, and for one person to write every episode, that's crazy stuff.
So you got to join me over here, Carl. We've got cookies. I wait until the series finishes, but don't tell anybody. So I know you're not supposed to do that, but The Expanse, The Crown, a couple other sci-fi shows, I'm waiting for them to be done.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that's a long time to wait.
I can wait.
What's great is I got into Breaking Bad towards the end.
See, me too. Me too. And wasn't it a blast to mow it all down?
It was, and it was only the final season that I had to watch week by week.
Right. Same here, man. I remember that. That's great.
Yeah.
This is just about the end of the Fan Planet question. I really want to thank everyone who submitted for us here, and I really, really appreciate you being on. Oh, I remember the point that I was going to make. Just because Brad's, if he does end up helming it himself, doesn't mean you can't pitch later on. Say, what, I have this idea.
Oh no. What did I just spend all this time explaining to you? I don't pitch. Brad says, "Hey, here's the idea. What do you think of this idea?" And I'm like, "Oh, wow, that is really great."
I
And
don't know. It's been a few years now. I wouldn't be surprised if you've been sitting on all this these sci-fi experiences and other experiences like with we didn't even crack into Unspeakable, man. And be like, you know what? I think I've got something here.
that was intense. That
Don't.
was,
Oh man, but was it good? Holy cow!
thank you. Well, it's Rob. It's Rob. It's
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
It is all
So
him.
much from his personal experience.
Oh yeah, yeah. And we were just talking about getting it in the zip code.
Right.
All the writers, we broke everything. We did really detailed. There's so much research. It was ridiculous the amount of
Correct.
research. And then you hoped you got the script somewhere to a point that he could work with it, because he did. It may say written by Carl Binder, but it's Rob. Every script in that, all 8 scripts were Rob, and which was great. It was his thing and his story, and I just wanted to be. When he first pitched it to me, I thought this is something. I mean, everyone knows the AIDS epidemic, but we didn't know how it affected this community, the hemophiliac.
I'd never heard about it
Rob,
until yeah,
and what Rob's parents did for him. And
yeah.
just when he was pitching, I was like, this is so important and so good, and you got to do it. And then he brought me aboard, and again, I was very intimidated by it. I was intimidated by the amount of research, the amount of, and then just being on set every single day with him. It was wow.
Well, I can't only imagine. I mean, you're dealing with something that happened historically, so you want to get on behalf of the people who went through it. You want to get that right, but also you don't want to disappoint your friend. I mean,
That
this
was the
this is
biggest.
bringing everything to bear.
Well, that was the biggest thing. Those moments when I was on set and he wasn't, because he was either editing or he was directing second unit or he was prepping, doing a production meeting or something. And there I am on set, and an actor is confronting me and saying, what about I would, there was a huge amount of pressure and stress to not screw it up, and to try to adhere to what. That was the great thing, is we had all the scripts written and locked down, and just trust the material and let's go. And again, a really great cast that was really supportive and eager and on board to do the best work they could do. And they were it was pretty stellar.
I've only watched it through the pandemic, and the scene in the supermarket with the mother and son, and then the other woman coming in and saying, he can't be in here. I mean, I was thinking, man, how relevant is that?
Yeah.
It was really creepy.
Yeah, that's right. It's got a whole different meaning now. Yeah. That's so true.
Yeah, I cannot recommend that series enough. It's available on Amazon Prime in most markets. And it's I think it's 8 parts, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's man, it's good. Carl, thank you so much for coming by and telling some stories from the show. I am doing multi-part interviews with as many people as I can later on this year. I would love to have you back, and
Sure.
it's just terrific to be able to sit down with you and your team and getting to share some of these stories. In some cases, with brand new generation of Stargate fans who are just discovering the show online on streaming now, despite the fact that it's rated in C-17 or whatever it is on Netflix.
It's cool that it endures. It's really, really wonderful to have been a part of something that still has an enduring fan base. That's really cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Very fortunate.
And I mean, we'll see what happens next. I have confidence in Brad's vision, and I really hope that it gets off the ground.
He has a way of making things happen.
He does.
You just never count that guy out, man. He will make it happen.
Absolutely.
It's in good hands.
Carl Binder, executive producer and writer, Stargate. My big thanks to Carl for joining us in this episode, and for all of my team who make this possible: Tracy, Keith, Jeremy, Reese, Anthony, Summer, Jennifer Kirby, Gate Gabber. You guys are the ones that make this happen. Uh, we have t-shirts. Dial the Gate's brought to you every week for free, and we do appreciate you watching. But if you want to support the show further, buy yourself some of our themed swag. We're now offering t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, and hoodies for all ages in a variety of sizes and colors at Redbubble, and we currently offer 4 themed designs and hope to add more in the future. The word cloud designs have both a solid background or transparent background option, so you've got some flexibility between choosing a light or dark color. Do keep that in mind when you're making your selection. Checkout is fast and easy, and you can use your Amazon or PayPal account. Just visit dialthegate.redbubble.com, and thanks for your support. And we couldn't do the show without offering you something. Absolutely. So for the month of April, we have partnered with Big J Customs to give you a chance to get your very own custom pup figure. To enter to win one of these, all you need to do is use a desktop or laptop computer and visit dialthegate.com, which is right there. Scroll down to submit trivia questions. Your trivia may be used in a future episode of Dial the Gate, either for our monthly trivia night or a special guest to ask me in a round of trivia. There's 3 slots. You just need to fill one in. You can fill up to 3, easy, medium, hard if you wish. The submission form currently does not work on mobile devices, so keep that in mind. Your trivia must be received before May the 1st, and if you're the lucky winner, I'll be notifying you via your email to get your address. And please be sure to check out our partner's website for more Stargate-related merchandise at bigjcustomsart.com. For next week, we will be bringing you Stargate novelist and Fandemonium founder Sally Malcolm. She'll be joining us at 10 a.m. Pacific time on April the 25th, followed at 12 noon by part 7 of our ongoing interview with Joseph Malazzi. He is going to be discussing with us season 9 of Stargate SG1. And April 25th at 2 p.m. Pacific time, Musetta Vander Shanak from Stargate SG1 as well. And we are announcing prosthetics makeup artist Todd Masters is going to be joining us May the 2nd at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Really excited about this guy. I've got one of his Borg from First Contact in my bedroom right now. So he's going to have all kinds of stories to tell, not just in Stargate, but all kinds of sci-fi projects. My thanks again to Carl Binder for making this show possible. Love that guy. His Stargate writing credits are just some of the best. And thank you so much for tuning in to Dial the Gate. My name is David Reed. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the other side.